Ty is not a crazy player. He's not going to put a lot of chips into the pot with the worst hand, so Simon won't get action for the re-raise unless he's behind. What's happened, of course, is that Simon's got Marcel done up like a kipper.
Yeah, if Simon had re-raised, he would have lost Lusk. But Lusk coming in the big blind with a perfect hand as far as Trumper is concerned. They both have 2 queens, and Trumper has the kicker. How can Lusk get away from this?
I don't know how he can. The problem is no longer how to get money from David Ty. It's how to keep the big fish on the line. They've both got top pair. Marcel has a very good kicker. For the flat call Simon Trumper made, he won't put him on ace-queen.
Well, the Dutchman has asked Simon Trumper for a countdown. He wants to know how many chips Simon is playing. The answer is that Trumper has about 4,600 back, while Lusk has just about double that, and he decided to call the bet. That's changed nothing, except now Marcel Lusk has an up and down straight draw, and he's going all in. This could be very tough for Simon to call. The way Lusk has played this, I mean, the only hand Simon Trumper can beat is Queen-King.
Well, there are so many draws on the flop. Straight draws, flush draws. Simon is just working out. He knows the Jack has improved Marcel's hand in some way, but how? Has it given him 2 pair, or has it given him a better draw? The answer to that question will tell Simon whether or not to call.
Queen 10-5. What would you be betting with all in? You'd bet all in with King 10 of hearts. So you've got a pair on the flop, now you've got up and down with a flush draw. In which case...
Well, we used to call it a creative put. That's what I think Simon's going for. He's going to put Lusk on a hand that he can beat and then call. And if he does, it'll be a good move.
The problem is the blinds are low. 4,000. 4,500.
The other question for Simon is that if Marcel has a really huge draw, if he's got a straight draw and a flush draw, then Simon's going to be gambling for half of his stack.
I'm good enough to lay this down.
And Simon doesn't want to gamble. He's making a very big fold here.
He is. I mean, as Trumper said, the key factor in his decision is that he can play his way out of 4,600. But Lusk made a great bet there to shut Trumper down. And Lusk showed it to him.
For me, it means a lot to be invited for televised events, make it to the final, see a lot of good players, see young players coming up, and then try to prove that I know what I'm doing. But I don't mind to lose if it's done fair and they play good.
Welcome back to the final of the Party Poker Late Night Poker Masters, where a first prize of $100,000 awaits the winner.
1,000, you bet.
Prize payout so steep at this final table, where $250,000 will be riffled and spit among the empty palms.
Pass. 1,000. Raise to 1,000.
What a big raise he's made. He's made it 1,000.
Just over 3 times the big blind.
Pass.
Trumper not getting a piece of that. OD reaching deep here.
Oh, Donica, oh dear. He's got David Ty strangled with this hand, but quite cautious. He's just called him.
Pass.
I think Donica has picked up that this David Ty does not go splashing his money in with any old rubbish. He'd like to see a flop before committing himself.
Yeah, and if the queen comes, it'll look like a very distressed play for OD, but he knows what he's doing.
2 players.
They have very similar stacks, and this is a big flop for David Ty. 2 spades on board, and he's got the ace-high flush draw, Vicky.
Well, when you're unbeknownst to you up against ace-king, this is a flop from heaven, the flush draw. And if Donica believes that David Ty had a pair before the flop, he might even give it up now.
It does seem like Donica called with the intention of giving this ace-king up if he didn't hit. He's capable of anything here, although I would imagine David Ty is welded to his hand.
He's given it up, Jesse. Well, personally, even though he had the best hand, I think that is a very classy play. You see so many young players now thinking with ace-king, you've got to be all in before the flop. Donica knows it's no pair. I'm up against a tight player. Let's take a look. He didn't improve. He's not going to get into trouble with it.
I'd only be happy if I win it, really. I think, you know, if you come second or third in a tournament, you're always disappointed. You know, it's always about winning. And, you know, at the beginning of the tournament, you'd have settled happily for second place or 50,000 or even third for 25 to give you good parlay in your money. But when you get to the final, you just want to win it.
No, I didn't stick my chips in there because of the 50 quid last longer bet.
Yeah, right. Because you had a pair of nines.
300. Quickly called
Call.
by Ken Leonard.
Pass.
Ken hoping that his limp will make it look bigger and nobody will raise.
Cheap price to crack Call. aces.
Yeah, it's like
Check. Call. Check.
I would have raced with it.
It's a five-way pot, Vicky. This
Yeah.
nearly a family pot here. 1,500 in the middle.
5 players.
Well, look at this. Barney Boatman, with a ridiculous hand before the flop, has hit something massive.
Yeah, two
Check.
pair on the flop, and he might
Check.
catch Ken in the middle here. Ken
That's
flopping
1200.
top pair with no kicker. Ken stuck
Pass.
1,200 in. I don't think he'll be getting that money back.
Pass.
No, this is the danger of the limp that Ken made. Barney couldn't possibly pass before the flop for the value he was offered. But how can anyone put him on 10-5? I mean, Ken can't possibly know.
It's actually quite a pickle that Barney's in right here, but I think when you play 10-5 from the small blind, you can find yourself in pickles like this quite often. But Barney knows that. He's creative, and he doesn't mind the tough decisions. I think he's re-raised.
Re-raise to 32.
Well, he has gone with the re-raise, and I think that is absolutely right, because there's so many scare cards that could come on the turn. Ken is absolutely the kind of player who would put the pressure on if one of them came down. You know, they always say, don't go broke in an unraised pot. Barney's won as much money with 10-5 as he has a right to.
For a chance to win an all-expenses-paid trip for two to Las Vegas to include flights, accommodation and spending money courtesy of PartyPoker.com, answer the following question. Where is the World Series of Poker held? A. London, B. Monte Carlo, or C. Las Vegas? Channel4.com/poker to enter.
Blinds out, and the Flying Dutchman, Marcel Lusk, in the Dutch colors, at least tie-wise, folding up shop. Barney's looking very comfortable behind his stack right now, Vicky.
Yes, Barney Boatman started with only 10,000 chips because he came second in his heat, but he has built that up above the level that the winners started with. But David Tye here with 2 nines, very interesting, with his tight table image.
Well, OD's in the tank a bit here, Vicky. OD quite happy to go deep into these flops. It's head up here. Here's the board, and it is Donica who's hit it, top pair with a big kicker. Will he know that's good?
That is a sneaky check. I'm sure he's trying to induce another bet from David Tye, but he hasn't got one. And with that check... Oh, but what a card for Donica OD. He cannot put David Tye on the 2 nines, and now a full house. OD with 2 pair and that queen redraw for the flush could get in some trouble.
Frankly, it's hard to see how OD's can avoid going broke right now, Vicky. I think he must be checking to raise. David Tye has a full house, and the only hand that Donica OD can think he's losing to is ace-king, but surely Tye would have bet the flop with ace-king. The bet is 2,000, and I just don't see OD doing anything but pushing in here.
Well, the advantage that OD does have is knowing that David Tye is a tight player, and he's not like Simon Earner or Jonathan Romero likely to do that with nothing. He's got something. What OD's got to think is it ace-king? Or is it maybe something that missed the flop?
It's pretty much a cold deck here. I mean,
Raise 3,500 more.
Well, OD has gone for the raise, and if David Tye wants to be very sneaky, he'll just flat call it.
Cool.
Look at this, he's calling. I think that is very sneaky play.
well, I mean, from Donica OD's point of view, He might be putting David Ty on like 2 kings.
Oh, and that's another horrible card, because if he does believe David Ty for ace-king, of course he'd be winning now with 2 pair. Now I think there's no escape.